Yeah, you guys are such a good fit and both just very uniquely talented. And I think what's interesting is the exceptional business advisors, our whole goal is to help people achieve their goals through business transaction, right? So helping them build businesses to sell or sell their business, or young folks to buy businesses, because I think it's a really big way to generate wealth. But you guys do the same exact thing. And that's what it was such an easy transition to be in real estate, oil and gas, and business, because at the end of the day, we're just helping people achieve their goals. And whatever that mechanism, whatever that transaction is, it actually is very similar throughout all of those industries. But when you have integrity of saying, I really want to serve somebody, I really want to help them understand how to take this asset and do something with it that's going to serve them and their family well, then it makes that transaction a lot easier. Tell us about the name River Tree. Where did that come from? And maybe some of the things, if you think about your business, what are the core values? What do you do? And what do you say we would never do? We will do these things. We stand for these things, but we don't stand for these things.
So River Tree, the name came from Psalm 1, and our inspiration was, the man that leans on the law of the Lord shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, whose fruit shall come forth in its season, and its leaf also shall not wither. And whatsoever he doeth shall prosper, right?
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, a podcast for purpose-led entrepreneurs looking to master the art of buying, selling, or optimizing small businesses. Your host, Chris Seegers, founder of Exceptional Companies and author of Selling Main Street, has over a decade of experience starting, buying, and leading successful businesses. He's here to guide you through the complex world of business transactions and growth. Each week, we dive deep with actionable insights, expert interviews, and real-world strategies to activate and equip you to live exceptionally and build exceptional businesses. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Here's your host, Chris Seegers.
Welcome to the Exceptional Companies Podcast, where we discuss how to buy, sell, or grow your business. I'm your host, Chris Seegers, and I'm joined today by a really special guest, one of my best friends in the world, and just a wonderful human being and man of high integrity, Jake Smith. Welcome to the show, brother.
Well, I really like it whenever you say all those nice things about me. Thanks for having me.
It's the first time in our relationship, I guess. So that's good, I got to add some words of affirmation after, the 10 years that we've known each other. Really get something good in there.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, let me intro you. For sure. So Jake Smith is the co-founder of River Tree Resources. He and I have done probably hundreds of deals together in oil and gas and outside of oil and gas. He's one of my favorite people in the world. He's also got a really important philanthropic, faith-based organization that he started. And he hails from West Texas, where we spent 8 years. So a lot of love still in Midland and in the Permian Basin. So, brother, I want to have you share your story for the audience that hasn't met you and doesn't know you, but tell me a little bit about kind of your upbringing, how you got into business, and how you've come to where you are today.
Oh, yeah. Boy, that's a big one. Well, grew up in West Texas and Big Spring, Texas, which is about 35 miles east of Midland, for those that don't know. And, kind of grew up northeast Howard County. So was kind of associated with raising animals and stuff like that. And kind of through high school at 4-H and did the Boy Scouts in high school, junior high school, and got to go and do a bunch of neat things, high adventure camps through them. And
you were probably one of those guys that raised rabbits, huh? And baked pies. Were you
rabbits were the easy money. Yeah, rabbits were the easy money. They just they help subsidize the goats that really were the more competitive breed. That was where most people thought that if they won state champion or fair county champ, then these old farmers would pony up pretty good to buy them in the auction. But yeah, we had to do rabbits. We had to do something. Don't judge me.
You got to start somewhere. Exactly. Yeah. Brick by brick.
But after high school, played sports and kind of a normal upbringing, I guess you would say. And then after high school, I didn't really have a direction that I wanted to go. So I took the first job that kind of presented itself to me, and that was at the Ford dealership in the body shop there in Big Spring. Bob Rock Ford was the was what it was called at the time. I think it's changed names since then, but worked there for several years, learning body work and learning how to paint cars, and ended up, moving to a couple of different shops after that, that paid a little better as you got more experience and stuff like that. And when I was 28 years old, I got the opportunity to become a landman. And my brother, he was working as a landman in West Texas for a group of local guys. And they were working on a pretty big leasing project out in Reeves County and Pecos County. And everybody that is, kind of has an understanding of the oil and gas industry knows that back in 2011, that was a pretty hot area to cut your teeth, So he brought me on as a title landman working through their area of interest in Pecos County, and through a company called Doherty and Associates, and Matt Doherty was the guy that officially hired me. And after the project was done in Pecos County, Matt kept me on for 2 or 3 more years after that. And it was a really good opportunity because he was a pretty small brokerage company. I think he only ran half a dozen landmen out of his shop there. And it gave me a really neat opportunity to kind of get the full spectrum of what a landman does.
So let's pause there. So basically,
Okay.
You were Billy Bob Thornton from the show Landman. I think you actually have that same set of jeans, those old like baggy stonewashed cowboy jeans that don't fit correctly. So
I might be wearing them right now.
You might be on that show. People have asked me about that show and they're like, "Hey, Chris, is that common to what happened?" And I'm like, actually, most of the things that are in that show have happened to us, but it took 10 years, not, one season. There is all kinds of crazy cartel activity in and around Midland in South Texas. There's people do die on location, which is terrible. It doesn't happen often, but they just compressed all the drama from, a 10-year period and told all the stories. But there's actually, I don't know, it read through pretty clearly to some of the funny situations that we were in, negotiating deals and some people that maybe weren't ethical. And there's so many stories about people, especially in the Delaware Basin, that, pulled guns on people and did different things. And you're like, no other business has gone through this type of situation. But what's a story that is a funny story about your landman experience that you want to share, that you can share, that you're not indicted for or anything like that,
What's pretty crazy, it was a pretty spectacular opportunity. It wasn't so much a single event with a person, but it was the events that transpired throughout an entire day. Okay. It was after I'd started working for my brother's company, Petrolima. I'd put under contract it was in the Midland Basin to buy some mineral interest from a family. Now we had several different contracts on the same family, that we kind of got them, one, then a week later we'd get one, then a week later we'd get one. And, we finally got them all under contract. By the time we got the last one under contract, we had basically already run the due diligence on everything and confirmed title and ownership and everything. And I thought, I'm just going to go ahead and close all of these people in one day. And at the time, the company had a plane, and I ended up flying the plane from Air Park in Midland all the way to Brenham, Texas, which is outside of Houston, then flew to San Marcos, then flew to Mission, Texas, then flew to Corsicana, Texas, then flew to Nashville, Tennessee, then flew to Little Rock, Arkansas, then back to Midland, all in one day.
All in a day's work. And that's what some
wild.
of the craziness of that show Landman is legitimate, where they crash that plane and it's somebody's plane. It's like, man, that stuff happens. And West Texas and Texas is so big that it's the life and the bigness of life out there is just something that most people, until you live out there, we were there for 8 years, you just don't fully understand it. So I love that, man. So let's fast forward. So you and I were part of a business that we grew really big and did a bunch of deals, a lot of stuff we're really proud of, worked with some great people. And then you spun out and you started River Tree. So tell us a little bit about what you do with River Tree and also just some of the core values, man, around why so you started this business with my brother, Andrew. You guys are just incredible men do life with integrity. So tell us a little bit about why you started River Tree and some of the ethos around it.
Well, I think it was just the next natural progression. It wasn't, you and I and Andrew have always talked about doing deals together. And, Andrew and I had been getting coffee together, for several months, at least, once a week, once every other week, just to stay in touch and talk about what's next. And, the company that we were with prior had gotten rolled up and we were kind of finalizing some deals the prior November. So we started in 2023 and, kind of wrapped everything else up with that previous group in 2022. And it was just kind of the next natural progression. I knew that I was going to be doing deals, and I feel like Andrew he has the ability to do a lot of things that I am not good at doing. He understands, he could stay in details a lot better. If you know anything about me, then you know that I'm kind of a high level guy. I like to have
Oh,
the
you're
conversation.
unmanageable.
I like to have the conversations with people and then be like, okay, I want to pass this off to you to close it, to do the due diligence. And, unfortunately, I do have to be involved in a lot more of that than what I would like, just because it's too much for one person to manage. But, I think his set of skills, just naturally being able to find the next play. He's great at finding prospects, and looking
Absolutely.
in
Yep.
areas and just has a foresight of things that are going to be good in the next few months. And, so he's been really good about putting mailers together and putting call lists together and generating kind of those leads. And then kind of my main function is just what it always has been as a mineral buyer, and that is just getting on the phones and calling people or taking calls from mailers that we sent out. And it's
Yep.
progressed into, we now have assets in 4 different states. Actually, we've bought stuff in Wyoming, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and in Texas. And,
I love it, man.
it's been kind of a neat progression, but that's kind of, it just kind of all fell into place. I don't really know how to say what happened, or there was a moment in time that I can look back and reflect on and say that was at the moment. It's just having that relationship with Andrew and knowing him over the years. It just kind of seemed like the next thing, the next natural thing. So
Yeah, you guys are such a good fit and both just very uniquely talented. And I think what's interesting is the exceptional business advisors, our whole goal is to help people achieve their goals through business transaction, right? So helping them build businesses to sell or sell their business, or young folks to buy businesses, because I think it's a really big way to generate wealth. But you guys do the same exact thing. And that's what it was such an easy transition to be in real estate, oil and gas, and business, because at the end of the day, we're just helping people achieve their goals. And whatever that mechanism, whatever that transaction is, it actually is very similar throughout all of those industries. But when you have integrity of saying, I really want to serve somebody, I really want to help them understand how to take this asset and do something with it that's going to serve them and their family well, then it makes that transaction a lot easier. Tell us about the name River Tree. Where did that come from? And maybe some of the things, if you think about your business, what are the core values? What do you do? And what do you say we would never do? We will do these things. We stand for these things, but we don't stand for these things.
yeah, River Tree. So River Tree, the name came from Psalm 1, and our inspiration was, the man that leans on the law of the Lord shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, whose fruit shall come forth in its season, and its leaf also shall not wither. And whatsoever he doeth shall prosper, right? That was our inspiration, as to the name. And I would say that our main function as mineral buyers is to educate people on what their asset is and to have a frank conversation with them and be candid to say, look, we think that this is going to get developed in the next few months, and this is why we assign this much value to it. And, go through with the mineral owners, because the majority of them, they know that they've inherited this asset. They know that their parents always told them, or their grandparents always told them, never to sell. And a lot of times, especially nowadays, where science has changed so much around the oil and gas industry, a dumb landman has the opportunity kind of, from a decent perspective, a high level perspective, to help them understand, benches and geology from a certain perspective, and how we assign value to this. And if they drill a well, there's a decline curve in it, ultimate recovery on wells, and tell them how we come up with prices, and then also explain to them what their options are as a seller, instead of take this big piece of money and go sit on it. But you have an option as a seller to do things like 1031, to reinvest into something that has been a great strategy that especially a lot of professionals in the oil and gas industry have been able to utilize. And
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
And I would say the thing that we don't do is we don't lie to people. We don't tell them, hey, your asset is worthless, sell it to us. And then, there's a story in the Bible about that. You don't undersell something to cut somebody's throat and then turn around and sell it for huge profit. I mean, we try to operate in a fair margin. If we sell stuff, we're looking to just make a fair deal with people, and we try to maintain our integrity while we do it.
I love it, man. So one of the things that I've always admired about you, and I don't want your head to get too big, because we got to tamp it down a little bit on occasion, but the way that you weave your faith, I think some folks I've seen really silo, and they've got business in a silo, they've got family in a silo, they've got faith in a silo, and those things don't really talk. We've said we want to live an integrated life where everything is connected, right? We believe we're created by a creator that has connected everything, and we want our faith to show through everywhere. And integration to me just says, hey, I'm the same person, whether I'm in church or business or anywhere you see me hanging out with my family. One of the things I've admired about you is how you've integrated your faith and even your giving. And so you helped with a couple big causes. You were helping young men with professionalism and etiquette, how to dress. You were helping a lot on the homeless issue in Midland. And then you started your own nonprofit or helped roll into a nonprofit.
All right, folks. So we want to take a quick minute to introduce our diamond sponsor, Chris Seegers with Exceptional Business Advisors. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your business, sir?
Man, a question that we love to ask our potential clients is, do you know what your business is worth? And if you sold your business today, would it fulfill your personal and financial goals? If you're a successful business owner, but you don't know when or how to sell your business, and if you've ever wondered what each additional day in your business is actually costing you, we'd love to chat. If you're ready to spend more time with your family, your friends, or traveling, come sit down with our team, because when you work with exceptional business advisors, we'll help you build a blueprint to sell your business successfully and help you create, capture, and achieve your dream life. Don't wait for the right time. The time's now. Go ahead and scan the QR code or book a discovery appointment at excoadvisors.com.
Now let's get back to the show.
So talk a little bit about that, what you guys are doing, the name of it, the cause, the function, and maybe some of the stories that came out of that, because I think as we think about our influence in the marketplace as business owners, one of the biggest ways is we can put our time and our capital and our resources to work in other ways in our community.
Yeah. So ultimately, it's the most important thing in our life, right? Because we could work for our whole lives building these great businesses, and at the end of it, it's just going to go to somebody else, whether it be our kids, whether they sell it to somebody else. But the thing that we can take with us from this earth are the things that we do in the name of Jesus. And, my whole philosophy is you only got one life to live. You got to make the most of it while you can, because once this life is over, that's all the rewards you've earned for yourself when you die. And it's the only thing that we can take with us when we leave, is the treasures that we've stored in heaven. And so the way that this kind of all started, and the Neighbors Eden Project is the name of our organization. And it didn't really have a name at first. It was Maddie, my wife, and we watch before we go to bed, just something kind of mindless, and it's on YouTube, and it's these people that are mowing yards, overgrown yards for people. And
How did you get on that feed?
It's just so mindless. And you're trying to decompress, so you're just seeing a guy mowing stripes up and down, up and down. It's like, oh, that looks really nice now. But what it turned
That's
into
funny.
is like, I thought that would be really neat to do whenever we retire, is just load up the yard tools in a trailer and go find somebody's house that they need mowing and just go mow it for them for nothing. And it turned into, well, the first day that we went out, it just was like on a Wednesday
Okay,
afternoon.
so back up. So you say like we're doing this when we retire, and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, who said, was it you or Maddie that just said, well, why don't we do it like next week? Like how'd
I
that
just loaded
conversation go?
I
Because it
just
went from
loaded
retirement.
everything up. I loaded everything up in the trailer, and I said, "Hey, when you get off work, you and the boys and I we'll go mow a yard. We're just going to do it now." So it was just a very sporadic spur of the moment. If you know me, then you know that's kind of how I operate. And I had no idea, no rhyme or reason as to whose house we were going to do. It was just we drove around and we saw one that was overgrown. But before that, let me back up just a little bit. Luke was asking, "Where are we going?" Luke, my son, he's my 18-year-old. He's like, "Where are we going?" And I was like, "I don't know. Let's pray about it." So we prayed about it. And then I told Maddie, I was like, "All right, which way do I go?" Because the Lord works through my wife when he's talking to me. And
Maybe that's the case with most of us if we'll shut up and listen.
I pray and then I just listen to her.
That's awesome.
Okay.
I love that.
So she said, "All right, turn left, turn right." And then there was this house there, and we have a program. I don't know. Y'all probably have it in Colorado Springs too, but Meals on Wheels, I think it's pretty nationally syndicated. But they have a big bird in the window of all the Meals on Wheels recipients. And
Yeah.
that was a great way to identify. It was like, well, we know that that person is, destitute enough to where they need somebody to bring them their meals. So let's go ask them. So we knocked on the door, and this gentleman opened up, and he had a hat on that said Jesus, and I was like, "Yeah, this is the one." So,
This is the sign.
we trimmed up his trees, and we edged his yard and mowed everything and weed eated everything and hauled off some junk that was in his front yard and got it cleaned up nice and then it just kind of all started from there. And another reason we started this was we want the boys to be involved into something that's, bigger than them, that they can understand that they've got a pretty privileged life and they appreciate things a little bit different whenever they go and they do work for other people. And that was another main motivating factor for it, was I wanted them to be involved in something that they could understand. There's a whole different demographic of people out here that don't have the same advantages that you do. And
For
to
sure.
go out here and be
Yeah,
able
it's
to
really
do it with
interesting.
good heart. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and kids need that tangible, experience because we're involved in the Springs Rescue Mission pretty heavily here in Springs. And we've toured it probably 4 or 5 times and just gotten to know the staff really well and the leadership. But we took the kids there, and honestly, it's not the safest environment. I mean, they keep it safe.
No.
They've got security and everything. But you've got a lot of folks that maybe aren't right mentally and, have come from pretty tough environments. But you're seeing this very raw experience, and kids are asking questions, right? They're like, so where do they live? Well, they don't have a house. Okay, well, why are they here? How did this happen? How do we help them? And putting them in that specific situation instead of just for years we built these Costco bags where we would, if somebody was asking for money, we'd give them a bag that had water, food, socks, just some basic things that the rescue mission said, hey, here are the top things if somebody's out on the street that they would normally ask for. But it wasn't enough of like a visceral connection for the kids to where it was the physically being there and the serving. So I love that you've done that with your boys. So tell me about the progression. So first of all, you're just like, and I remember you calling me, hey, I got this one lawnmower and I'm doing this thing and, we're going to raise some money and buy some more equipment. So where are you at now, and what does that mission look like? Because it's progressed a ton, and I love the mission.
Oh man, it's happened so fast. I mean, the only explanation is that it's blessed by the Lord, and it's definitely the right direction for us at this time in our lives. It's progressed from, we had kind of just using our own yard tools. I had a riding lawnmower because our yard was an acre. And then I had, a weed eater, an edger, a blower, and that was about it, and a few like hedge trimmer and stuff like that. But now it's progressed into, we've been very blessed by some organizations. Whitley Penn, they were really generous, and they just recently gave us a donation. Some private individuals that they just they don't want the accolades of their name, but they've been very generous. And, a lot of, we've just been very blessed. I mean, I want to say we probably raised $30,000, and we have a whole new trailer with a whole new two different commercial riding lawnmowers, zero turn and stand-on mowers, and we've got 7 different power heads for weed eaters, and the main reason why is because our volunteer force has grown so fast. Once we signed up with the Midland Legacy Foundation, which is a great organization it's a great opportunity for kids in Midland. The Legacy Foundation offers them a free education if they graduate through any Midland high school, and it will offer them a free education through Midland College through an associate's degree. But one of the requirements for them to qualify is they have to do 40 hours of community service. So what's really neat about the community service and the kids that we get, they're all volunteering to better themselves. And they all come in with a great heart. And, one of the neatest things about what we do is we pray with all of the clients that we have, if you will.
That's
we pray
awesome.
with all of them after we get done mowing their yard. And, we pray for healing. We've really just tried to be, a member of the body of Christ that's out there doing the Great Commission, which I feel like we were told to go out and pray for the sick, lay hands on the sick, cast out demons, and to go do the works of the Lord. And I feel like this is the outreach opportunity that the Lord's put in front of us, and has really just grown it so fast. I mean, we started April 10th last year, and we maintain over 60 yards for people.
Wow.
Yeah, you need to go and check our website out if you haven't. It's neighborsedenproject.org, and it gives a breakdown, and we've got some pretty neat metrics that we've tracked with volunteer hours, impact to the community. I think another measurable that we probably need to start recording is tons of debris removed from people's yards, because we've done some really large cleanup projects. And it's so amazing because you'll have a roll-off dumpster, which is a big, the big roll-off construction dumpsters dropped off at a location. LK Specialties has been a partner. They're the ones that do our roll-offs. I want to give them a really good plug because they've been a great partner. They don't charge us anything. They drop off the dumpster, and then they pick it up, they haul it, and they've been a great partner. But it's really neat to see we've had 18 volunteers show up in one day. And
that's incredible.
We filled up a whole entire roll-off dumpster of debris that was in somebody's yard in 30 minutes. Wow, it's amazing. It's like, you see
incredible.
The time-lapse videos of things happening, but you don't even have to time-lapse it because it happens so fast. It's a bunch of little ants working, But it's been
amazing.
really neat to see that progress, and the opportunity that we've had to be able to pour in mentor into the kids, the next generation of leaders growing up, and exposing them to giving has been a really neat opportunity as well. So I hope that I've taken advantage of the opportunity that the Lord has put in front of me as best of my ability. So,
yeah, and I really appreciate that about you. And one of our core tenets is that the community we're in, wherever it is, for us, it was Westcliff, Midland, Fort Collins, back to Springs, and Springs is headquarters for our family office, and where, God willing, will be a long time. But we want our team to flourish, our clients to flourish, and our community to flourish. And humans flourishing is a through line of a lot of businesses, including the oil business I'm a partner in. But most people don't go do that tactically. And this is such a visceral, physical example of how you can help people flourish. Like their yard and their house is flourishing. You're helping somebody who's already struggling. You're praying over them. And also it's helping the community to have nice looking houses, which improves the value of all the community around it. I love that, man. I want to change gears a little bit because this through line of how do we have our our impact, our faith, and our business all connected. So if you're talking to a young entrepreneur, and I know you're a mentor to people, and so is my brother Andrew. You guys are just incredible at mentoring young men. But I think one of the things that people, maybe is a fallacy or maybe some bad counsel, is, yeah, once you get to a certain level, then you can start giving. And you start giving money and you start giving your time. And we've always said, no, like, you know, God, the widow that gave the couple coins, right? And Jesus said, wow, that person is given more than anyone. And so we've really encouraged people to allow that integration of the faith in the workplace and everything and have it be one thing. But if you could think about tactically, if there's a young person and they say, hey, I'm just not really sure how to let my faith shine through the rest of my life in business, what are some things or some wisdom you'd give them?
How to let my light shine through in business. You know, I think that I think you kind of nailed it at the beginning of the conversation whenever you were talking about being transparent with people and being the same person in business that you are in church, that you are, you know, at whatever social club you're at, you know, at your child's t-ball game or whatever. I think having a genuine, you know, caring personality, I think that resonates with somebody more than anything. I think people desire to have a real connection with people. And I think that the more you display your faith, the more genuine connections you're going to have with people who share that same faith. And I think that would be the advice that I give, you know, just be genuine and care.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, that saying, I don't know who to give credit to, but people don't care what you know until they know you care. That's so true. I mean, I'm the worst to blame for this. I love talking, right? And I love communicating with people, and I get so excited now, you know. And I've really, this year has been a true focus for me to listen more. And to really sit with people. And I'm also fast paced, so I already know, my head is spinning, and I'm like, I already know what the end of the story is. I already know where we're going. We're already over here. And instead, just to fully be engaged and just say, hey, listening is how I can demonstrate how much I love and care for this person. And it has changed everything, man. Business relationships, marriage, even conversations with my kids, just to be able to sit and just listen. Hey, tell me about your day. And instead of saying, oh, cool, what'd you learn? What'd you this? What'd you that? Just really like, oh, that's great. You tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. And I think as we think about building thriving and flourishing communities, we've overcomplicated things. Colorado Springs is actually doing a pretty good job where they're starting to reconnect communities after COVID, where people, I think, struggle to say, well, okay, well, I kind of, you know, everything got blasted apart. How do I build community? How do I build friendships and relationships? And I think folks are trying to find it on the social media side, which is not going to fulfill you. It's not going to happen. There's a little bit of utility there. But at the end of the day, it really is, how do you go out and meet your neighbor and get to know them? How do you get to know, you know, the person at the coffee shop that you're getting a coffee every week? How do you really pour into them? And I love the tactical application of, we have this concept that one of my good friends, Rob Thompson, talks about. It's a military concept called the OODA loop. The letters stand for observe, orient, decide, and act. And what you did in that nonprofit was you accelerated the OODA loop. You said, okay, we observe this thing, we're orienting. And instead of saying, let's do this when we retire, you're like, let's do it tonight. Here we are, we have a lawnmower, let's get it done. And I think that's just incredible. And that's where you're getting this great fruit, because you are a faithful steward of this concept, right? And we've tried to do that in business. When something comes in, instead of saying in 3 years, we're going to build this business, we're like, no, could we do this in 2 months? Like, hey, we see this opportunity in the marketplace where people are not getting served well. Let's go make this happen today. Like, let's go serve them well today. Let's go stand up a business around that. So I think that bias to action and that speed to action is really rewarded. I love that, man. Okay, so we're kind of heading towards the end of the conversation, and this is just incredible, man, of thinking about how to tie in the business and the faith and the impact. But if we think about tools and resources that you've found so useful, if there's something that has benefited you over the past 3 to 6 months that you're like, hey, I read this book, or I listened to this podcast, or I really dug into this mental model, what's something you would want to share with our audience?
Honestly, you got to learn AI. If you don't learn how to use AI to your advantage, you're going to get left behind. I used to say, well, the old adage was God created everybody, but Sam Colt made them equal. I think I think the same might be true for Chat GPT today. It puts everybody on an even playing field. But
That's the greatest example I've heard about ChatGPT yet, because every person on my podcast, maybe not every, but almost everyone, when I've asked that question, they've said, you better learn the utility of AI. And if you don't, you'll be left behind. So I think that's great that we're reiterating this to our, so give us a tactical application for somebody that's in business for how you could utilize it. And there's all kinds of really cool ones, but somebody that's like, what do I do tomorrow? How do I utilize, whatever, Claude, ChatGPT, whatever the platform is?
I can't speak to every industry because I'm not familiar with, their processes, but in the oil and gas industry, it makes document review a lot faster. It makes the creation of documents a lot faster. And where we used to have to rely on an attorney for just about everything, I think ChatGPT has gotten so good that if we want to amend a clause in an oil and gas lease or a mineral deed, we can do it pretty confidently now that it's going to be legally acceptable because it knows all the laws. You just tell it what you want. And that's going to be kind
You're
of the
playing fast
biggest
and loose,
example.
dude. I love it. You're just like, we'll just have a ChatGPT attorney and see what happens. Let's throw it all out.
We got plenty of attorneys, don't get me wrong, but if I can save an hour of billing, I'm going to.
Yeah, for sure. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So I think I've been closing with the podcast with encouragement or wisdom because you know me, I'm a massively pro-American guy. I think this is the greatest country in the world. I think the opportunities in this country are just vast and endless. I think that if you want to be a millionaire in this country, anybody can do it. If you want whatever kind of quality of life, anybody can do it. You got to do the hard work. You got to do the things no one else is going to do to get that life. But there's a lot of folks around me that I think feel like they are getting left behind and they're a little bit depressed and feeling like, hey, the opportunity isn't here and the country's, hit the peak and now we're going down, which I fully, I don't agree with that at all. And so the praying and the fasting, man, I think people of faith, it's hard to see not being a person in faith with how crazy this world is. And I can tell you the same thing, the peace and the joy that comes out of fully releasing control, still doing all the things you can control. And I think that's something that's important to distinguish. We're responsible for our actions and our control, but most of life is out of our control, and being able to release that and just accept the peace and the joy that comes from a relationship with God. And like Jake said, whatever that looks like for you, I think is beautiful. So brother, thanks so much for joining. Thanks so much for your time, for your energy, for your commitment and integrity, and look forward to connecting real soon.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Exceptional Companies Podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or via RSS so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes, or if you'd simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us out too. If you like this show, please reach out through our website, www.excoadvisors.com, for free tools to order a copy of Selling Main Street, or to sign up for our free webinar on how to sell your Main Street business.